Don't worry about the money. Just save my baby." Emily Carter whispered those words to an empty hospital hallway, never knowing that a simple mistake would reach the one person who could change everything. The clock above the emergency room door moved slowly past midnight, each second sounding louder than the last. Emily sat beneath the cold fluorescent lights, holding a paper folder against her chest. Inside was a hospital bill she could barely look at without feeling her heart sink. The total was $18,700, a number that belonged to another world. A world of people who never counted every dollar before buying groceries. A world where a medical emergency was a problem to solve, not a nightmare waiting to take everything away. Across from her, behind a glass window, her 8-month-old daughter Lily slept peacefully for a moment. The tiny rise and fall of her blanket was the only thing keeping Emily from falling apart. She had spent the last 3 days beside that hospital bed, drinking vending machine coffee, sleeping in uncomfortable chairs, and pretending she was stronger than she felt. Emily had learned how to smile when she was scared. She had learned how to say, "We'll be okay," even when she had no idea if they would be. 2 years earlier, she thought she knew what her future would look like. She had imagined a small home, family dinners, and watching her child grow up surrounded by love. But life had changed quietly. The promises she once trusted disappeared, and she became the person responsible for every decision, every bill, and every difficult night. She never blamed Lily. Not once. Her daughter was the reason she kept going. Her reason to wake up before sunrise and work extra shifts at a small bakery. Her reason to keep trying even when exhaustion felt heavier than anything she had ever carried. But tonight was different. Tonight, she had reached the moment every parent feared. She needed help. Emily pulled out her phone with trembling fingers. There was one person she thought she could ask. Her older brother James. He had always told her, "If you ever need me, call." She opened their conversation and attached a picture of the hospital bill. Her message was simple. "James, I'm sorry to ask again. Lily needs more treatment, and I don't know what else to do. Can you please help me?" Her eyes filled with tears as she stared at the screen. Asking for money was not easy. Asking for help felt even harder. But a mother's fear was stronger than her pride. She pressed send. Then she closed her eyes. For a few seconds, she allowed herself to believe everything would be okay. 300 miles away, inside the top-floor office of Whitmore Global, Alexander Whitmore was preparing for a meeting that could change his company forever. At 39 years old, Alexander had built one of the most successful technology companies in the country. His calendar was filled with investors, negotiations, and decisions worth millions of dollars. People described him as brilliant, focused, and impossible to surprise. His phone rarely received personal messages. Almost no one had his private number. So when the screen lit up with an unfamiliar notification, he almost ignored it. Then he saw the attachment. A hospital bill. Then the message. A mother asking someone named James for help. Alexander looked at the words again. Something about the desperation behind them made him pause. It was not a business request. It was not someone trying to gain his attention. It was simply a person reaching the end of her strength. He should have deleted it. He should have moved on. But his finger stopped above the screen. Because hidden inside that accidental message was a name he had not heard in years. Lily. And for a reason he could not explain, that name made him wonder who was on the other side of the phone. Alexander Whitmore stared at the message on his phone for several seconds, wondering why a stranger's words felt heavier than any business decision waiting on his desk. The city lights outside his office window continued to shine across the glass towers of downtown Chicago, but for the first time that night, the numbers on his computer screen seemed meaningless. Millions of dollars in negotiations. Contracts waiting for his approval. A company depending on his next move. None of it explained why he was still looking at a hospital bill sent by mistake. He tapped the screen again, reading the message carefully. "James, I'm sorry to ask again. Lily needs more treatment, and I don't know what else to do. Can you please help me?" There was no manipulation in those words. No carefully chosen sentence designed to get attention. Just a mother reaching for someone she trusted. Alexander leaned back in his chair and let out a quiet breath. His assistant, Claire Bennett, knocked softly before entering the office. "Mr. Whitmore, the board members are ready for the conference call." Alexander looked up, but did not answer immediately. Claire had worked beside him for 6 years. She knew his schedule better than anyone. She also knew that something unusual had happened when he stopped responding to a meeting reminder. "Is everything all right?" she asked. Alexander turned the phone toward her. "This was sent to me by mistake." Claire glanced at the screen, then quickly looked away, respecting his privacy. "Do you want me to block the number?" she asked. Normally, that would have been the obvious answer. Alexander was careful about boundaries. His personal phone was protected. His time was protected. His life was organized down to the minute. But tonight, something felt different. "No," he said quietly. "Not yet." Claire noticed the change in his voice. Alexander Whitmore was known for making decisions quickly. He did not hesitate during billion-dollar acquisitions. He did not second-guess difficult choices. But this was not a business problem. There was no spreadsheet, no forecast, no strategy meeting that could explain what he should do next. He looked back at the photo attached to the message. It showed only a corner of a hospital room, a small blanket, a tiny hand resting near the edge of the frame, a child, a mother who was clearly afraid. Alexander did not know why that image stayed with him. Maybe it reminded him of something he had forgotten, something buried under years of meetings, deadlines, and responsibilities. Years ago, before Whitmore Global became a name recognized around the world, Alexander had learned a painful lesson. Success could fill a room with people, but it could not always make someone feel less alone. He had spent years building an empire because achievement was easier to understand than emotions. Numbers had rules. People did not. He picked up his phone and typed a response. His fingers paused above the screen. He deleted the first version. It sounded too formal, too distant. Then he tried again. "Is your daughter okay?" A simple question. Nothing more. He pressed send. For the next few seconds, he watched the screen quietly. He expected no response. He expected the stranger to realize the mistake and disappear. Instead, almost immediately, the message indicator appeared. Emily Carter was still awake in the hospital hallway. Her eyes widened when she saw the reply. She looked at the number again. Her heart sank as she realized something was wrong. This was not James. This was not her brother. She had sent her daughter's hospital bill to a complete stranger. Her first reaction was embarrassment, then fear. She quickly typed a response. "I am so sorry. I sent this to the wrong number. Please ignore it." She stared at the words before sending them. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to take back the moment of weakness. But before she could put her phone away, another message appeared. "You mentioned your daughter. Is she okay?" Emily froze. For a moment, the noise of the hospital disappeared. The footsteps in the hallway, the distant conversations, the sound of medical equipment behind the doors. Everything became quiet. Because the person on the other side of the phone was not asking about the bill. He was asking about Lily. Emily looked through the glass window at her sleeping daughter and felt tears gather in her eyes. She did not know who this stranger was. She did not know why he cared. But after days of feeling invisible, someone had finally asked the one question she needed to hear. "Is your daughter okay?" And somewhere inside a quiet office high above the city, Alexander Whitmore waited for an answer that would soon change the direction of both their lives. Emily Carter stared at the stranger's question on her phone, unable to move for several seconds. "Is your daughter okay?" For simple words. Yet somehow, they felt different from every question she had heard in the past few days. Doctors had asked about symptoms. Nurses had asked about paperwork. The billing department had asked about payment. But this person, someone who was not supposed to be part of her life, had asked about Lily. Not the bill, not the money. Her daughter. Emily looked through the hospital window again. Lily was sleeping quietly, her small fingers wrapped around the edge of her blanket. The sight brought a wave of relief mixed with exhaustion. "She is stable," Emily finally typed. "The doctors are watching her, but she needs more treatment. I am sorry again. I did not mean to send that message to you." She hesitated before adding one more sentence. "Thank you for asking." Across the city, Alexander Whitmore read the reply from his office chair. He noticed the way she apologized twice. A person asking for help should not have to spend so much time apologizing for needing it. He had met hundreds of people throughout his career. Executives who wanted opportunities. Investors who wanted returns. Partners who wanted advantages. Everyone seemed to want something from him. But Emily Carter wanted nothing. She did not even know who he was. Alexander typed another message. "You do not need to apologize. What happened to your daughter?" Emily looked at the screen. Part of her wanted to stop. She had spent years learning not to trust easily. She knew the world could be unpredictable. She knew kindness sometimes came with expectations. But tonight was different. Tonight she was tired. Tired of carrying every responsibility alone. Tired of pretending she never needed anyone. She slowly began typing. Her name is Lily. She is 8 months old. She had some health complications, and the hospital recommended additional care. I am trying to figure everything out. Alexander read the message carefully. He could almost picture the woman behind the words. Someone sitting in a hospital chair, holding on to hope while feeling completely overwhelmed. "Are you at the hospital now?" he asked. Emily looked around the empty hallway. The vending machines hummed softly. A cleaning cart rolled past in the distance. The world continued moving, even though hers felt frozen. "Yes," she replied. "I have been here most of the night." Alexander glanced at the time on his computer. It was nearly 1 o'clock in the morning. He should have been reviewing documents for the upcoming merger. Instead, he found himself having a conversation with someone whose name he had only just learned. He did not understand why he cared, but he knew ignoring her would feel wrong. He opened another message. "Did you eat anything today?" Emily blinked at the question. She looked beside her and noticed the untouched coffee she had bought hours earlier. She could not remember the last real meal she had eaten. "I am okay," she replied automatically. It was the same answer she always gave, even when she was not okay. Alexander noticed the response immediately. "That was not what I asked." For the first time that night, Emily smiled slightly. It was small, almost impossible to notice, but it was there. A stranger had somehow seen through the answer she gave everyone. "A sandwich," she finally admitted. A few hours ago, Alexander looked away from the phone and toward the city outside. He had spent years surrounded by people, yet moments like this reminded him how disconnected he had become. He knew the value of companies. He knew the value of investments. But he was beginning to remember the value of a person simply being there. "Stay with Lily," he wrote. "I will see what I can do." Emily's expression changed. She immediately became cautious. "No, please. You have already been kind. I cannot ask a stranger for more." Alexander paused. He understood why she reacted that way. Trust was not built through one message. It was built through actions. "You are right," he replied. "You should not trust strangers." Emily looked at the screen. Then another message appeared. "My name is Alexander Whitmore." Her eyes widened slightly. The name felt familiar. She had heard it before. Everyone in the business world had. Whitmore Global, one of the largest technology companies in the country. She stared at the phone, confused. The man who had been asking about her daughter was not just some random person. He was someone with more resources than she could imagine. But Alexander did not mention his company. He did not mention his wealth. He only wrote one more sentence. "Right now, I am just someone who knows a mother is scared." Emily felt her eyes fill with tears again. Not because of the money, not because of who he was. Because after a long time of feeling like she had to fight every battle alone, someone had finally reminded her that she was not invisible. And while Emily was still trying to understand why a billionaire CEO was speaking to her in the middle of the night, Alexander Whitmore was already making a decision that would change everything. Because for the first time in years, he was not thinking like a businessman. He was thinking like a human being. Emily Carter had spent years learning one important rule about life. Never expect someone to stay when things become difficult. That was why Alexander Whitmore's kindness felt almost impossible to understand. She sat quietly in the hospital hallway, staring at the conversation on her phone. His name was still there. Alexander Whitmore, a man whose company appeared on business news and whose decisions affected thousands of people. Yet the person speaking to her did not sound like a billionaire. He sounded like someone who simply cared. Emily looked through the glass window toward Lily's room. The soft glow from the medical equipment reflected across the quiet space, creating a peaceful scene that felt far away from the fear she carried inside. She typed slowly. "I do not know why you are being so kind to me, but thank you." A few seconds passed before his reply appeared. "Because someone should be." Emily read the sentence twice. It was simple, almost too simple. But after months of handling everything alone, those words meant more than he could have known. Across the city, Alexander remained in his office long after everyone else had left. The conference call he was supposed to join had ended without him. The documents waiting on his desk were untouched. His assistant Claire had quietly moved his meetings to the morning without asking questions. She understood something was different. Alexander Whitmore was a man who rarely allowed emotions to influence his decisions. But tonight, Something had reached a part of him that business success never could. He looked again at Emily's messages. She had not asked for money. She had not recognized his name at first. She had only wanted someone to help her daughter. That honesty stayed with him. "What hospital are you at?" he asked. Emily hesitated when she saw the question. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She wondered if she was crossing a line. This man had already done more than most strangers would ever do. She did not want to become another burden in his life. "Mercy Medical Center," she finally replied. "But please, you do not have to do anything. I will figure it out." Alexander noticed the sentence immediately. He had seen it before. People who struggled often became experts at saying they were fine. They protected their pride because asking for help made them feel vulnerable. "You are a mother," he typed. "You do not have to pretend everything is fine when you are worried about your child." Emily stared at the screen. A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. Not because she was sad, because someone finally understood. She quickly wiped her face and looked around, hoping no one noticed. For years, Emily had been the person who stayed strong. She was the one who smiled at Lily after sleepless nights, the one who counted every dollar carefully, the one who found a way even when there seemed to be no way. But strength did not mean she never felt tired. It only meant she kept going. "Lily is the only family I have left," she wrote. "She is everything to me." Alexander read those words silently. Something about them felt familiar. Not the situation itself, but the feeling behind it. The feeling of protecting someone who mattered more than anything else. He looked at a framed photograph sitting on the corner of his desk. It showed a younger version of himself standing beside his mother. Before success, before the company, before the endless responsibilities. His mother had always told him, "Never become so successful that you forget people who need kindness." He had carried those words for years, but somewhere along the way, he had stopped listening. "How old is Lily?" he asked. 8 months, Emily replied. Alexander looked back at the photo of the little hand in the hospital picture. A strange feeling passed through him. A feeling he could not explain. "Does she have family nearby?" he asked. The answer took longer this time. "No, it has just been me." Alexander closed his eyes briefly. The sentence was only 5 words, but he understood the weight behind them. Just me. In a world where people surrounded him every day, he suddenly thought about how lonely it must feel to carry everything without anyone beside you. He stood from his chair and walked toward the window. The city stretched below him, filled with millions of people living their own stories. Somewhere among them was Emily Carter, a mother sitting beside her child, believing she had no one to turn to. He picked up his phone again. "Stay with Lily tonight," he wrote. "Do not worry about anything else right now." Emily looked at the message, unsure how to respond. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to accept the comfort. But life had taught her to be careful. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Alexander looked at the question for a long moment. The honest answer surprised even him. He was not helping because of a business opportunity. He was not helping because someone asked him to. He was helping because a stranger's struggle reminded him of something he had almost forgotten. "Because I know what it feels like when someone needs help and no one comes," he finally replied. Emily held her phone close to her chest. She did not know what tomorrow would bring. She did not know why a man like Alexander Whitmore cared about her small family. But for the first time in a long time, the darkness around her did not feel quite as heavy. And while Emily tried to understand the unexpected kindness that had entered her life, Alexander was already making plans that would take him far away from his office and closer to a story he never expected to become part of. Alexander Whitmore had spent most of his life believing that every problem had a logical solution, a stronger strategy, a better plan, a decision made at the right moment. That was how he built Whitmore Global from a small technology company into a business recognized across the country. But standing alone in his office after midnight, looking at a message from a woman he had never met, he realized there were some things money and intelligence could not solve from a distance. He needed to do something. The thought surprised him, not because helping Emily was difficult. It was because he had almost forgotten what it felt like to care about something without expecting a result in return. He picked up his phone and called his assistant. Claire answered on the second ring. "Mr. Whitmore?" Her voice sounded tired but alert. She had learned over the years that Alexander rarely called after hours unless something important happened. "I need you to make a few arrangements," he said. Claire waited. "What kind of arrangements?" "Find out everything we can about Mercy Medical Center. I need to know if there is anything preventing a patient from receiving necessary care because of financial issues. Claire paused briefly. Is this related to the message you received? Alexander looked out at the city lights. Yes. She did not ask more questions. That was one reason he trusted her. Claire understood that some decisions came from spreadsheets, while others came from something deeper. I will handle it, she replied. After ending the call, Alexander remained still for a moment. He knew what he was about to do would surprise everyone around him. The next morning, he had a major international meeting scheduled. A private flight was prepared. Investors were expecting his presence. His calendar was filled with commitments that normally could not be moved. But none of those things felt as urgent as a mother sitting beside her daughter in a hospital room. Across town, Emily was still awake. The night had slowly turned into early morning, and the hospital hallway began filling with quiet movement. Nurses changed shifts. Families walked through the doors carrying coffee cups and tired expressions. Everyone had their own story. Everyone was carrying something unseen. Emily checked her phone and saw another message from Alexander. I am looking into the situation. Please focus on Lily. She stared at the words. It was strange. She barely knew this man, yet his messages gave her a sense of calm she had not felt in days. She walked back toward Lily's room and gently placed her hand against the glass window. Her daughter was still sleeping, peaceful, unaware of how much her mother was fighting for her. Mommy is here, Emily whispered softly. I am not going anywhere. A few minutes later, a nurse approached with an update. Lily's care team had reviewed the next steps, and they were continuing to monitor her progress. It was not a complete solution, but it was enough to give Emily hope. She thanked the nurse and sat back down. Then her phone rang. She almost did not answer because she did not recognize the number. Hello, she said cautiously. Is this Emily Carter? A professional voice asked. Yes. My name is Claire Bennett. I work with Alexander Whitmore. Emily sat up straighter. The name still felt unreal. Mr. Whitmore asked me to let you know that he is personally reviewing the situation. He also wanted you to understand that you should not worry about contacting anyone else tonight. Emily became quiet. I do not understand why he would do this, she admitted. Claire's voice softened. Neither did I at first. There was a brief pause. But sometimes people with everything still remember what it feels like to have nothing. After the call ended, Emily looked down at her phone. She thought about all the moments when she had felt alone. The days she counted coins at the grocery store. The nights she stayed awake worrying about tomorrow. The time she smiled in front of others because she did not want anyone to see how scared she was. She never expected help to come from someone like Alexander Whitmore, a man from a completely different world. High above the city, Alexander prepared to leave his office. His assistant had already arranged his transportation. The private aircraft was waiting. Claire placed the final documents on his desk. Your schedule has been cleared, she said. Alexander nodded. Thank you. She looked at him carefully. May I ask something? He looked up. Why this situation? Alexander glanced at the photo attached to Emily's message one more time. The tiny hand, the hospital blanket, the reminder that behind every number was a person. Because someone needed someone to show up, he said quietly. A few hours earlier, Emily Carter had believed she was sending a simple message asking for help. She thought she had made a mistake. She thought she had reached the wrong person. But sometimes the wrong number can lead to the right moment. And as Alexander Whitmore stepped onto a private flight toward a city where he had never expected to go, neither of them knew that this unexpected connection would reveal something far greater than either of them imagined. The private aircraft moved above the clouds, leaving the city lights behind as Alexander Whitmore sat quietly in his seat. For the first time in years, he was traveling somewhere without a business agenda waiting at the destination. No investors, no presentations, no carefully prepared speeches, only a hospital room and a mother who had reached out by accident. He looked down at his phone again. Emily Carter's last message was still there. Thank you for helping me. 5 simple words. Yet they stayed in his mind longer than any contract he had signed. Alexander had always believed actions should have clear reasons. A company expanded because of strategy. A deal succeeded because of preparation. A decision was made because of facts. But this time, he could not explain why he felt such a strong need to be there himself. He could have sent someone from his team. He could have handled everything from his office. That would have been easier. That would have been the normal choice. But something told him that Emily did not need another name on a document. She needed someone to show up. Miles away at Mercy Medical Center, Emily sat beside Lily's bed and watched the morning sunlight slowly move across the hospital floor. The night had been long, but for the first time in days, she felt a small sense of peace. She still did not know what would happen next. She still worried about the future, but knowing someone had heard her made the fear feel lighter. A nurse entered the room with a gentle smile. "How is Lily doing this morning?" she asked. Emily looked toward her daughter. "A little better," she replied. "I think so." The nurse checked the information on the tablet and smiled. "That is good news. Also, someone has already started reviewing the financial arrangements connected to her care." Emily immediately became alert. "What do you mean?" The nurse looked at the screen. "I only know that the hospital administration was contacted early this morning. They said everything is being handled." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She already knew who it might be, but the thought seemed impossible. Alexander Whitmore was not supposed to be involved in her life. He was a stranger, a billionaire, someone who lived in a world completely separate from hers. She picked up her phone and sent a message. "Did you do something with the hospital?" Alexander saw the message while looking out the aircraft window. He smiled slightly before replying. "I made sure Lily receives the care she needs." Emily stared at the screen. Her first feeling was gratitude. Her second was worry. "I cannot let you pay for everything," she wrote. "You do not even know me." Alexander looked at those words for a moment. He admired them. She was struggling, yet her first concern was not taking advantage of someone's generosity. "You are right," he replied. "I do not know you yet." Emily paused at the last two words. Yet, it was a small word, but it carried a strange warmth. "Why are you coming here?" she asked. The question followed Alexander for several seconds. He had asked himself the same thing. Finally, he typed the truth. "Because I want to understand the person behind the message." Emily looked down at Lily. The tiny movement of her daughter's fingers reminded her how quickly life could change. One moment she was alone in a hospital hallway. The next, a stranger had stepped into a difficult chapter of her life. She did not know if she should trust it. She did not know where this connection would lead. But she knew one thing. Alexander Whitmore had treated her like a person when she felt invisible. Hours later, the aircraft began its descent. Alexander looked through the window as the city below came into view. His assistant had sent him updates throughout the flight. Everything was arranged. The hospital was prepared. The necessary conversations had been handled. Yet none of that mattered as much as the moment ahead. He was about to meet the woman whose desperate message had interrupted his carefully controlled world. He was about to meet the child whose name had unexpectedly caught his attention. When the aircraft landed, Alexander stepped outside carrying no briefcase and no business documents. Only his phone and a question he could not answer. Why did a stranger's struggle feel so familiar? At Mercy Medical Center, Emily received another message. "I am here." She looked at the screen, then toward the hospital entrance. For a moment, she simply stood there. The man who had answered her accidental message was no longer just a name on her phone. He was about to walk into her world. And neither of them knew that their first meeting would reveal the beginning of something neither had planned. Emily Carter stood near the entrance of Mercy Medical Center, holding her phone tightly in her hand as she waited. Every few seconds, she looked toward the front doors, then back at the message on her screen. "I am here." 2 words. Somehow, they felt impossible. She had spent years learning how to handle problems on her own. She had learned how to stretch a grocery budget, how to work extra hours, and how to smile when she was exhausted. But she had never learned how to react when someone stepped into her life and offered help without asking for anything in return. The automatic doors opened, and a man walked into the lobby wearing a simple dark jacket instead of the expensive suits Emily had seen in business magazines. He did not look like someone trying to impress anyone. He looked focused, calm, human. Emily recognized him immediately. Alexander Whitmore. For a moment, she forgot what to say. The person she had only known through a phone screen was standing right in front of her. "Emily Carter?" he asked gently. She nodded. "Yes." Alexander offered a small smile. "I am Alexander." Emily almost laughed at the simplicity of the introduction. She knew exactly who he was. Everyone did. But standing there in the hospital hallway, he was not the billionaire CEO people talked about. He was just the man who had answered her message when she needed someone. "You really came?" Emily whispered. Alexander looked at her for a moment. "I told you I would." Those words affected her more than she expected. because promises had become complicated in her life. People had made them before. Some were forgotten. Some disappeared with time. But Alexander had made a promise through a simple conversation, and he had kept it. He looked toward Lily's room. "Can I meet her?" Emily hesitated for only a second before nodding. "Yes." They walked quietly down the hallway together. Alexander noticed small details that others might have missed. The coffee cup sitting untouched beside Emily's chair. The worn handbag resting near the hospital bed. The way she checked on Lily every few moments, even when she knew her daughter was safe. It told him everything. This was not a woman waiting for someone to rescue her. This was a mother who had been fighting every day because she loved her child. Inside the room, Alexander stopped near Lily's bed. The baby was sleeping peacefully, surrounded by soft blankets and quiet sounds from the room. He did not speak immediately. He simply looked at her. Emily watched his expression carefully. She expected a businessman to ask questions. She expected someone focused on numbers and arrangements. Instead, she saw something different. Compassion. "She is beautiful," Alexander said quietly. Emily smiled. "She is my whole world." Alexander looked at Lily again. "I can tell." The words were simple, but they carried understanding. Emily sat down beside the bed. "I still do not understand why you are doing this," she admitted. "People like you usually have important things to worry about." Alexander looked at the floor for a moment before answering. "Maybe I have spent too much time worrying about important things that were not actually important." Emily looked at him, surprised by his honesty. The man everyone saw as powerful suddenly seemed like someone searching for something he had lost. A nurse entered the room with an update, and Emily immediately focused on Lily. Alexander stepped aside and listened carefully. He asked thoughtful questions, not as a CEO making a decision, as someone who genuinely wanted to understand. After the nurse left, Emily looked at him. "You really did not have to come all this way." Alexander met her eyes. "Maybe not." He paused. "But I wanted to." Outside the room, the hospital continued moving around them. Phones rang. Footsteps passed. Families waited for their own moments of hope. But inside that small room, something had changed. Emily was no longer facing the uncertainty completely alone. And Alexander, a man who had spent years building a world of success, had taken his first step into a different kind of life. A life measured not by achievements or numbers, but by the moments when someone needed him and he chose to be there. The room was quiet except for the gentle sounds surrounding Lily's hospital bed. For Emily Carter, that silence felt different now. A few hours earlier, the same silence had felt heavy. It had reminded her of every unanswered question and every fear she carried alone. But now, with Alexander Whitmore sitting nearby, it felt peaceful. Not because all her problems had disappeared. They had not. The future was still uncertain. The bills were still overwhelming. The road ahead was still complicated. But for the first time in a long time, Emily did not feel like she was walking through it alone. Alexander sat in the corner of the room, giving Emily and Lily space. He was used to being the center of attention. In business meetings, people waited for his decisions. In crowded rooms, people recognized him before he introduced himself. But here, none of that mattered. A hospital room did not care about titles. It did not care about bank accounts or company rankings. It only showed what kind of person someone truly was. Emily watched him quietly. "You are different from what I expected," she said. Alexander looked at her with curiosity. "What did you expect?" She smiled slightly. "Honestly, someone colder." Alexander almost laughed. It was not the first time someone had described him that way. "I suppose I have earned that reputation." Emily looked toward Lily. "People see what they want to see." The sentence stayed with him. Because Alexander knew it was true. Most people saw the successful CEO, the man on magazine covers, the person who made impossible decisions look easy. Very few people saw the person behind the image. "How did you become this strong?" he asked. Emily looked surprised by the question. She glanced at Lily before answering. "I do not think I became strong. I think I just did what I had to do." Alexander listened carefully. "When Lily was born, everything changed. I was scared. I did not know if I could handle everything. But then I looked at her, and I realized she needed me more than I needed to be afraid." Her voice softened. "So I kept going." Alexander looked at the small child sleeping peacefully. There was something powerful about the way Emily spoke. She was not trying to impress him. She was not asking for sympathy. She was simply telling the truth. A nurse entered the room with updated information about Lily's care plan. Alexander listened closely, asking questions when necessary. Emily noticed something unusual. He did not act like someone making arrangements from a distance. He acted like someone who genuinely cared about the answer. After the nurse left, Emily looked at him. "You know, you could have just sent someone here." Alexander nodded. "I could have, but you did not." He looked at Lily. "No." Emily studied his expression. "Why?" Alexander was quiet for a moment. He searched for the perfect explanation, but none came. Finally, he answered honestly. "Because I did not want Lily to just become another problem to solve." Those words touched Emily. She understood what he meant. Too often, people looked at difficult situations as things to remove. They saw numbers, paperwork, and complications. Alexander saw a little girl and her mother. As the afternoon passed, Emily noticed small things about him. He answered every message from his team politely, but kept his attention on the room. He thanked every nurse who entered. He never acted as if helping them made him more important. That surprised her. She had expected wealth to create distance. Instead, she saw humility. Later, when Lily woke briefly, Emily gently picked her up. Alexander watched with a quiet smile. "She knows you are here," he said. Emily looked at him. "You think so?" "I do." The moment was simple. No cameras. No business headlines. No expectations. Just two people standing beside a child who had unknowingly connected their lives. But while Emily saw only kindness from a stranger, Alexander felt something he could not explain. A feeling that this meeting was not as random as it seemed. He looked at Lily's small bracelet resting beside the blanket. Something about it caught his attention for just a second. A familiar detail. A memory he could not place. Before he could think about it further, Emily noticed him looking. "It was a gift," she explained. "Someone important gave it to her." Alexander looked away, but the question remained in his mind. Who had given Lily that bracelet? And why did it feel like he had seen something similar before? The small bracelet beside Lily's blanket remained in Alexander Whitmore's mind long after he left the hospital room. It was only a simple piece of jewelry. Nothing expensive, nothing that would attract attention. But something about it felt familiar, like a memory waiting behind a closed door. He stood in the hospital hallway, looking through the glass window as Emily gently rocked Lily back to sleep. He did not want to interrupt the quiet moment. There was something deeply personal about watching a mother care for her child. It reminded him of a time before his life became filled with meetings and responsibilities. A time when family mattered more than success. Later that afternoon, Alexander sat in the hospital waiting area with a cup of coffee he barely touched. His phone displayed dozens of unread messages from his company. His team needed updates. Investors wanted answers. But his attention remained on one small detail. The bracelet. He opened the photo Emily had sent the previous night. The same bracelet was visible around Lily's tiny wrist. He zoomed in carefully. A small silver charm hung from the center. It was shaped like a tiny star. Alexander froze for a moment. Years ago, he had seen that symbol before. Not on a bracelet, not on a child, but on something connected to a part of his past he rarely thought about. He leaned back slowly, trying to organize the thoughts forming in his mind. It could be a coincidence. There were millions of similar designs in the world. A small star meant nothing by itself, but the feeling remained. A quiet voice inside him said there was more to this. Across the hallway, Emily returned with Lily's updated paperwork. She noticed Alexander looking thoughtful. "Is something wrong?" she asked. He immediately looked up. "No, I was just thinking." Emily studied his expression. "About the bracelet?" Alexander was surprised. "How did you know?" She touched Lily's blanket gently. "You looked at it earlier." Emily smiled faintly. "Everyone asks about it." Alexander looked closer. "Who gave it to her?" Emily became quiet for a moment. Her hand rested gently near Lily. "My mother gave it to me before she passed away." Alexander listened carefully. "She wanted Lily to have something that belonged to our family." The answer created another question in his mind. "Your mother's name was?" Emily looked at him. "Sarah Carter." Alexander felt a strange shift inside him. He had heard that name before. Not recently, not in years, but somewhere deep in his memory. A name connected to a chapter of his life he had never completely understood. He tried to hide his reaction, but Emily noticed. "You know her?" she asked. Alexander looked away briefly. "I am not sure." It was the truth. He was not sure. He only knew that a forgotten memory had suddenly appeared. A memory he thought was gone. He remembered being younger, before becoming the CEO everyone knew today. He remembered a woman who once told him that success meant nothing if he forgot the people who mattered. He remembered a promise he made but never had the chance to keep. But he pushed those thoughts away. The past was complicated, and Emily was standing in front of him with a child who needed care, not questions. "Your mother?" he asked carefully. "Did she ever mention someone named Alexander?" Emily looked confused. "No." "What?" Alexander paused. "No reason." But Emily noticed something change in his expression. The confident CEO who seemed to have every answer suddenly looked uncertain. That made her curious. "Mr. Whitmore, is there something you are not telling me?" Alexander looked at her. For a moment, he considered telling her everything. About the familiar feeling, about the memory, about the possibility that this meeting was connected to something from his past. But he stopped himself. It was too early. He did not want to create questions before he had answers. "I think there may be a connection I need to understand," he finally said. Emily looked down at Lily. "What kind of connection?" Alexander did not answer immediately. He looked at the little girl sleeping peacefully. The same little girl whose hospital bill had reached him by mistake. The same child who had somehow brought him back to memories he had buried for years. "I do not know yet," he admitted. "But I want to find out." That evening, after Emily returned to Lily's room, Alexander stood outside the hospital entrance. The city lights reflected against the glass doors. He called Claire. "I need you to look into something for me," he said. Claire immediately became serious. "What is it?" Alexander looked back toward the hospital. "A name. Sarah Carter." There was a pause. "And I need you to be careful." Claire understood the importance of his words. This was not a business investigation. This was personal. As Alexander ended the call, he looked once more toward the hospital windows. Somewhere inside was a mother who had no idea that her accidental message had uncovered a connection reaching years into the past. And somewhere inside his own heart, Alexander began to wonder if this was not just a chance encounter. Maybe some messages were never truly sent to the wrong person. The next morning, Alexander Whitmore arrived at his office earlier than usual. The city was still waking up, and the glass walls of Whitmore Global reflected the soft morning light across the empty conference rooms. Normally, this was the time when Alexander prepared for another day of decisions, another day of meetings, another day of carrying responsibilities that few people understood. But today, his thoughts were somewhere else. They were with a hospital room, a mother named Emily Carter, and a little girl named Lily. On his desk was a folder Claire had prepared overnight. It contained everything they had been able to confirm about Sarah Carter. Alexander opened it slowly. The first pages were simple, basic information. Employment records, addresses, nothing unusual. Then he reached a section that made him stop. Sarah Carter had once worked for a small company that partnered with one of Alexander's earliest business projects. It was years before Whitmore Global became successful, years before people knew his name. He remembered that time clearly. He had been younger, more ambitious, focused on proving himself. During those years, he met many people who helped shape his future. But one person had always stood out. Someone who reminded him that success meant nothing without kindness. Alexander looked at the page again. Sarah Carter. The name connected to a memory he thought he had forgotten. He leaned back in his chair, trying to understand the connection. Before he could continue, Claire entered the office. "I found something else," she said. Alexander looked up. "What is it?" Claire placed another document on the desk. "There is a record from years ago. It is not a public record, but it appears Sarah Carter had a personal connection with someone in your family." Alexander's expression changed. "My family?" Claire nodded. "I do not have the full details yet, but the timeline matches." The room became quiet. Alexander looked out the window. For years, he had avoided looking too closely at certain parts of his past, not because he did not care, but because some memories carried unanswered questions. Questions he never had the chance to resolve. At Mercy Medical Center, Emily sat beside Lily while holding a small photo album. It was something she carried everywhere. Inside were pictures of her mother. Sarah had always been a quiet, loving person. She never had much, but she always made sure Emily felt protected. "Your grandmother would have loved you," Emily whispered to Lily. She touched the small bracelet on her daughter's wrist. "She wanted you to have this because she said every family has a story worth remembering." Alexander arrived at the hospital later that day. When he entered Lily's room, he noticed the photo album immediately. "Is that your mother?" he asked. Emily looked down at the picture. "Yes." She smiled softly. She passed away a few years ago, but she was the strongest person I ever knew. Alexander looked at the photo carefully. His expression became still. There was something familiar about Sarah's face, not because he had known her well, but because he remembered seeing that same warmth in someone from his past. "Did your mother ever tell you about her life before you were born?" he asked. Emily looked curious. "Not much. She was private." She closed the album gently. She always said some chapters of life were meant to be understood when the time was right. Alexander felt those words deeply, because he knew what it meant to leave parts of the past untouched. "Did she ever mention the Whitmore name?" he asked carefully. Emily searched her memory. "I do not think so." Alexander nodded slowly. He did not want to pressure her. He did not want to turn her mother's memory into a mystery before understanding the truth himself. But inside, more questions were appearing. Why did Sarah's name connect to his family records? Why did Lily's bracelet feel familiar? And why had a simple message sent by mistake brought him back to a part of his life he thought was finished? Later that evening, Alexander sat alone in his hotel room, reviewing the documents again. He found one handwritten note among the records. It was old and faded. Only one sentence was visible. "Some promises wait longer than people expect." Alexander read it several times. He did not know who wrote it. He did not know what promise it referred to, but he knew one thing. The story behind Emily and Lily was not just about a hospital bill or an unexpected act of kindness. There was something deeper connecting their lives, something that had been waiting quietly for years. And now, Alexander had to decide whether he was ready to uncover the truth. Alexander Whitmore had spent years making decisions before anyone else saw the problem. It was one of the reasons Whitmore Global became successful. He noticed details others ignored. He listened when others spoke. He searched for answers when others accepted uncertainty. But this time, the answer he was looking for was not hidden inside a business report. It was connected to a family story that had been waiting quietly for years. The next morning, Alexander returned to Mercy Medical Center. He found Emily sitting beside Lily's bed, reading a small book softly while her daughter rested. The scene was simple, peaceful. Nothing about it matched the world Alexander came from. His days were usually filled with glass offices, important conversations, and people competing for his attention. But here, in this small hospital room, he saw something different. He saw patience. He saw love. He saw a kind of strength that could not be measured. "Good morning," Emily said when she noticed him. Alexander smiled. "Good morning." She looked at him carefully. "Did you find anything?" Alexander knew exactly what she meant. The question about Sarah Carter, the bracelet, the connection that neither of them fully understood. He sat down across from her. "I found some information," he said carefully. Emily waited. "Your mother was a remarkable person." A small smile appeared on Emily's face. She was. Alexander looked at the photo album resting beside her. She helped people even when she did not have much herself. Emily nodded. "That sounds like her." There was something emotional in the way she said it, like she was remembering every small moment that made her mother special. Alexander opened the folder he had brought with him. He did not want to overwhelm her with questions. He did not want to turn her mother's memory into a mystery to solve. But he needed to understand. "Emily, do you know anything about your mother's life before she raised you?" Emily looked down. "Not much. She did not talk about those years often." "Did she ever mention a company called Whitmore Technologies?" Alexander asked. Emily thought for a moment. "No, I do not think so." Her expression changed slightly. "Why?" Alexander paused. He had expected many possible reactions. Confusion, surprise, maybe even disbelief. But he did not want to create fear where there was no answer yet. "Because my company records show that she worked with my family many years ago." Emily looked surprised. "My mother worked with your family?" "Yes." Alexander looked at Lily. "And I am trying to understand why." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The hospital room remained quiet. A nurse passed by outside. Sunlight moved across the floor. Emily gently touched Lily's bracelet. "My mother always told me that some people enter your life for a reason," she said softly. Alexander looked at her. "Do you believe that?" Emily smiled faintly. "I did not always. Life taught me to be practical. But lately," she looked at Lily. "I am starting to wonder." Alexander understood that feeling, because he had been wondering the same thing. Later that day, Claire called with another update. "I found something else," she said. Alexander stepped into the hospital hallway. "Tell me." Claire lowered her voice. "There was a private foundation connected to your family years ago. Sarah Carter was listed as someone who received assistance from that foundation. Alexander listened carefully. Why is that important? Claire hesitated. Because the foundation was created by your father. Alexander became quiet. His father had passed away years earlier. Their relationship had always been complicated. His father was a successful man who valued responsibility and reputation above everything else. Alexander respected him, but there were parts of his father's life he never understood. Is there a record of why she received assistance? Alexander asked. Not yet. The files are incomplete. He looked back through the hospital window toward Emily and Lily. A mother, a daughter, a bracelet connected to a forgotten past. The pieces were beginning to form, but the picture was still unclear. That evening, Emily noticed Alexander seemed distant. Are you okay? She asked. He looked at her and smiled gently. I am just thinking. About my mother? Alexander nodded. About how many things people leave behind without realizing someone else may one day need those answers. Emily looked at him quietly. She did not know what was happening between their families. She only knew that the man who arrived as a stranger was now someone she trusted. Alexander looked at Lily sleeping peacefully. He had come to help a mother and child. But now he was discovering that this little girl might be connected to a chapter of his own life. A chapter he thought had already ended. And for the first time in many years, Alexander Whitmore was not searching for a business solution. He was searching for the truth. Alexander Whitmore had spent years building a life where every answer could be found through research, analysis, and careful decisions. But the deeper he looked into Sarah Carter's past, the more he realized this was not a problem that could be solved like a business challenge. It was a story filled with choices, promises, and people who had carried their own struggles quietly. The next morning, Alexander returned to Mercy Medical Center with the old document Claire had discovered. He kept it inside his briefcase, unsure how much he should reveal to Emily. He did not want to bring confusion into her life. She had already carried enough uncertainty. When he entered Lily's room, he found Emily sitting beside the bed, gently folding one of Lily's tiny blankets. She looked up and smiled. You look like you did not sleep much. Alexander smiled slightly. Neither did you. Emily laughed softly. That is different. I am a mother. Her words were simple, but they reminded him of something important. Emily did not see herself as someone waiting to be saved. She saw herself as someone responsible for another life. Alexander sat down beside her. I spoke with my team again. Emily became concerned. Is something wrong? He quickly shook his head. No, actually, we found something about your mother. Emily became quiet. The mention of Sarah always brought a mixture of warmth and sadness. What did you find? Alexander carefully placed the folder on the table. Your mother was connected to a foundation my father created many years ago. Emily looked confused. My mother never mentioned that. I know. Alexander looked down at the papers. And that is what I am trying to understand. Emily opened the folder slowly. Inside were copies of old records and notes. Most of them were difficult to understand. Names, dates, addresses. But one detail caught her attention. Her mother's signature. Emily touched the page gently. I have not seen her handwriting in years. Alexander watched her expression change. It was not about the mystery anymore. It was about remembering someone she loved. She was always careful with her words, Emily said quietly. Even when life was hard, she always tried to make people feel better. Alexander nodded. That sounds like someone I remember. Emily looked at him. You really knew her? Alexander took a breath. I knew of her. I met her during the early days of my company. She helped my family in ways I did not fully understand at the time. Emily looked surprised. My mother helped your family? Yes. Alexander paused. And I think my family may have helped yours too. The room became quiet. Lily moved slightly in her sleep, and Emily immediately looked toward her. The moment passed, but the questions remained. Later that afternoon, Alexander met with Claire outside the hospital. I found another record, Claire said. It is connected to your father's private foundation. She handed him a document. Alexander read the first few lines and stopped. This cannot be right. Claire looked concerned. What did you find? Alexander looked at the date, then at the name. Sarah Carter had received support from the foundation during a difficult period of her life. But the record showed something else. Someone had requested that her information remain private. Someone inside his family had personally protected her identity. Who approved this? Alexander asked. Claire checked the file. The request came from your father. Alexander stood silently. His father had always been a difficult man to understand. Serious, private, often distant. But this revealed a side of him Alexander had never seen. A side that helped without needing recognition. That evening, Alexander returned to Emily's room. He watched her laugh softly as Lily held onto her finger. The scene felt strangely familiar. Not because he had lived it before, but because it reminded him of something his father once said. True kindness is often the thing people hide the most. Emily, Alexander said gently. She looked up. Yes. He hesitated. There were still pieces missing. Too many unanswered questions. But he wanted her to know one thing. Your mother mattered to my family. Emily looked at him carefully. Why are you telling me this? Alexander looked at Lily, then back at Emily. Because I think she deserves to be remembered. Emily's eyes became emotional. For years, she wondered if anyone outside their small family knew how special her mother was. Now, standing beside a man from a completely different world, she realized Sarah's kindness had reached farther than she ever imagined. And Alexander finally understood something too. The connection between them was not created by a mistaken message. It began long before either of them knew they would meet. It was a promise from the past, quietly waiting to be fulfilled. The truth about Sarah Carter did not arrive like a sudden storm. It came slowly, piece by piece, like sunlight finding its way through a window that had been closed for years. Alexander Whitmore spent the next few days carefully reviewing everything Claire had discovered. Old records, private notes, documents his father had kept away from the public eye. And with every new detail, Alexander understood something important. His father had not been the cold man everyone believed him to be. He had simply been someone who helped quietly, without needing anyone to know. The final document Claire found was a handwritten letter. It was addressed to Sarah Carter. Alexander held it carefully, feeling the weight of the years behind every word. The letter explained that his father had once helped Sarah during a difficult moment in her life. Not because he wanted recognition. Not because he expected anything in return. He helped because he believed people deserved support when they needed it most. But one sentence at the bottom of the letter changed everything. If my son ever meets your family, I hope he understands what I learned too late. The greatest things we leave behind are not businesses or possessions. They are the lives we touch. Alexander read the sentence again. His father had written those words years before. Long before Alexander understood what they meant. He sat quietly in his office, looking at the city outside. For so long, he thought his father measured success only through achievement. But now he realized there was another side to the man he barely understood. A side built on compassion. At Mercy Medical Center, Emily sat with Lily while waiting for another update from the doctors. Life had slowly started to feel normal again. Not perfect, not easy, but possible. She looked at Alexander differently now. He was no longer just the stranger who answered a message. He was someone connected to a story her mother had carried with her. I think my mother would have liked you, Emily said one afternoon. Alexander smiled softly. Why do you think that? Emily looked at Lily. Because she always believed people should help each other, even when they have nothing to gain. Alexander became quiet. Those words sounded exactly like something his father would have said. Two families from different worlds. Two people who never expected their lives to cross. Yet somehow, kindness had created a connection before they even knew each other existed. Later that day, Alexander received the final confirmation from Claire. The foundation records were accurate. Sarah Carter had been protected by his father's generosity many years earlier. There was no hidden business deal, no secret agreement, just an act of kindness that had remained unknown until now. Alexander felt something inside him change. For years, he believed his purpose was to build something that would last. A company, a legacy, a name. But now he understood that a person's true legacy was not what they owned. It was what they gave. He returned to Lily's room that evening. Emily looked up as he entered. You found the answers, didn't you? She asked. Alexander nodded. I found some of them. He sat beside the window and looked at Lily sleeping peacefully. Your mother was helped by my family many years ago. But more importantly, she was remembered. Emily smiled through emotional eyes. That would have meant everything to her. Alexander looked at her. I think she helped my family too. Emily was surprised. How? He looked around the small hospital room. She reminded us that kindness does not disappear. Sometimes it just takes time to come back. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They did not need to. Some moments were understood without words. Outside, the city continued moving. People rushed through their days. Businesses opened. Meetings started. The world continued as it always did. But inside that hospital room, two people from completely different lives discovered the same truth. Money could solve many problems. Power could open many doors. But kindness could reach places that nothing else could. Alexander had arrived hoping to help a mother and her child. Instead, he found a missing part of himself. Emily had reached out believing she had made a mistake. Instead, she found someone who reminded her that good people still existed. And Lily, the little girl whose hospital bill started everything, became the unexpected connection between two families who were never truly strangers. Sometimes the message that changes your life is the one you never meant to send. Sometimes the person who arrives to help you is also the person who needed to find you.